we're here with another video, and this is the 2023 Nissan Altima SV. So it's just a bit over the base model, but this has a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine. I believe it's outputting 180 horsepower and 188 pound-feet of torque or something to that degree. I might have mixed up the numbers. But yeah, this is your basic mid-size sedan that's competing with anything in regards to the Mazda 6, Toyota Camry, Honda Accord. It's just Nissan's version of it. And it's using its tried and true 2.5 liter engine, which really hasn't been refreshed in like years and years. When I looked at this car in like 2011, it still has that same engine. So that just shows how Nissan hasn't really improved their performance or really anything to that regard. It's kind of annoying, especially being pretty underpowered, but wife and I are here on our way to Mount Rainier in Oregon, and yeah, just driving along, and I thought since we have this as a rental car, I can do a short review on this. Now, we've been driving this car every day. Again, today's mid-size sedan is previously in the 2000s, like the full-size sedans, because cars have just gotten bigger. The length of this car is 193 inches, which is insane. Like, it's very, very long. The styling of this looks fine. Again, it's in the typical rental car spec where it's just mid-pack and it's silver and it's got dings and things like that around. But I think exterior aside, I think it really hasn't done much. Like, it doesn't do much for me when I look at it. It's again very elongated. I don't think it stands out. There's a lot of chrome on the exterior, which I'm not a huge fan of. Nissan's pretty bad at doing that all the time, but performance-wise, it's not super great. Again, I mentioned the specs. The gas mileage is good. It has a CVT, which works fairly well. It's pretty comfortable. But again, I mentioned the performance. Acceleration is quite shit. There is a sport mode-ish on the back here. It's kind of a hidden feature. Again, doesn't really do much, but again, it has a CVT in it, so it tries to hide the fact that it has a CVT when you put it into that mode. Gas mileage, 29 in the city, 36 on the highway, so pretty good gas mileage. So maybe that's the thing to praise for this car. That's not super expensive, but yeah, I think the gas tank is quite huge. When I paid for gas, I was like, holy cow, like it needs more. But I think interior wise, it's pretty, like, it seems to have like very similar materials that I remember from my brother's Maxima, and they're not bad. There's hard plastics that like here and there. Biggest offender of piano black, which is super annoying. Everything's super reflective. Already too many pieces of piano black, so I don't like it. I'd say the overall interior is pretty comfortable. You've been sitting in the car for quite some time. Do you think it's comfortable?
Absolutely.
Yeah? And then it's got a ton of interior space. The trunk is huge. Black interior, pretty nice seats. Cloth. See behind me, there's boatload of legroom. You can see here, look at that. Not too much headroom. So, but again, I have like, I'm 5'10", but I have like the torso of like a 6'2" person. You can see some legroom there. Not too much there. There is a USB-C and a USB-A port back here. No vents. Really annoying. Cup holders probably in here. Nice plush seats. Some might say it's cheap. Got some plasticky bits back here. Some more piano black stuff. Plasticky. But but not too bad. Overall visibility is quite good, but the cloth seats are pretty good too. Not really any complaints there. But yeah, I think it's a pretty decent car, but yeah, I think it has some decent safety features. The rear camera is okay, but you don't really need a great rear view camera in terms of like the backup camera. But like when I fall out of the lane, the steering wheel vibrates. It doesn't keep you in the lane, but it just vibrates to show you that it's not like that you're falling out of the lane. So that's something that I noticed. And it doesn't have adaptive cruise control or the Pro Pilot system on this one. And Apple CarPlay and Android Auto has not been functioning properly on this. Every now and then it's kind of like I have to fidget around with this thing. It only has it connected via the USB connection, and the USB connection is meh. It's working about 50% of the time since we've been here, so it's pretty annoying. If you're looking for this car, good gas mileage, front wheel drive, it does come with all-wheel drive, and the all-wheel drive takes away about 2 miles to the gallon in the city and 3 on the highway, obviously because you're adding the rear axle as well. But yeah, it's a solid car. Interior road noise isn't that bad. I think it's based on the road surfaces that you're driving, but when we're driving on a smooth surface, it's pretty quiet. In Oregon, if you can't hear it already, the road is fairly rough. I'm sure there are people in the comments that probably know why this is, probably for grip in the wet or something like that. But it makes it super loud in the cabin. Like it's very loud. Like even next to Caroline here, like I can't hear what she's saying unless she's basically facing me. So it does have like a side dimming mirror, which is always nice. I've noticed that Nissan does a good job in making sure that it has the driver side on the left here, the auto dimming mirror. And yeah, other than that, infotainment is pretty decent. If Apple CarPlay worked all the time, then I think it would be really good. But seemingly the only time I've had an issue, so I think it's just the USB interface that's kind of broken in a rental car. And it would be nice if you can get the rear to work, or one in the glove compartment or like, you know, in the center console or center stack here. But it's all up in here, and there's a USB-C and a USB-A, which is nice to have. And then there's also an auxiliary port too, in case you're going back a few years. Overall infotainment here is fine. I would want there to be like a screen for like maybe directions, if you have CarPlay up. But when I had that, there was no way to do that. You can just see like the speed as well as what song is playing on CarPlay, so that's kind of annoying. A couple other things that I wanted to mention as well. So there are blind spot monitors in the side pillars. They're little orange things. You can probably see them right here and on the right side there. Actually, Tesla implemented something similar to that in that it's like a little red dot, but they don't really mention it to anybody. And then also with the brake performance is quite shit. And the reason for that is probably because it's a rental car and we're also in a fairly hilly state. So I think part of the reason for that is because there's no maintenance done on these particular cars. So that's also something to mention too. I think with regular maintenance, there's probably fine. Steering feel is not the greatest. We've been going over some hills and at fairly decent pace, and it sort of gets unsettled over bumps and under turning. Again, this car is not meant for performance, so it would probably make sense why it wouldn't be great at that. But I'd think like overall the ride's been great. Like I haven't had any issues with the overall ride and undulations or anything like that. I think it's definitely built for comfort. Now looks wise, honestly I think maybe the Camry looks the best in terms of the styling, or maybe the Mazda 6. Also, the turn signal on this is very loud to me. Again, the Tesla stock is very quiet, so maybe that's a bad comparison. This is probably on par with everything else, but the note that it plays is kind of strange to me. None of this material seems reflective, but like I've noticed a lot of glare, and with my sunglasses it helps a lot to actually see forward visibility wise and also rear visibility wise, because some of the stuff in the rear view mirror is also super reflective too, and the polarized sunglasses really actually help me to be able to see that, especially in a state that's super sunny in the summer. Another thing is the steering. I didn't mention this in the performance, but like there's quite a bit of, and this is an issue with all like just regular cars, is that on center there's a lot of play. And I noticed that in the Nissan Maximo that my brother owns, and I think it was a 2012 that I have a video about. And that's one of the major issues that I see with this, is that especially if you're doing road trips and longer stints, it's kind of like at higher speeds, it's kind of unsettling. But again, like not trying to tell you to go over the speed limit or anything like that, but just normal like 75, 85 mile per hour speeds, it's like kind of unstable. Also, I mentioned like it has sort of cross-traffic notifications as well as rear notifications. It doesn't have any sensors on the front, so that's something to take note of, is that the sensors on the rear and the cross-traffic sensors are pretty decent. And then it also notifies you when you're making a left or right turn if something's in your blind spot. If you're not used to that, it might be a little bit alarming, but to me, it was pretty helpful in some cases, especially with a car you don't really know. Did not mention about the steering wheel. It is a bit rubber-ish. It's kind of cheap, but it's not too bad. It does have a flat bottom steering wheel, which is interesting. I guess they started putting this on a lot of cars because people said it was like sporty or something like that. I like flat bottom steering wheels, but that's just a me thing. Something to note about the steering wheel, there are a lot of buttons on here, which is common with a lot of cars now. I'm used to my Tesla, which has essentially like scroll wheels, left and right, and then you can push down buttons. So here, it's not the most ergonomic, especially on your left, and like, there's actually a few buttons that are missing on this particular car, which I think there's like Pro Pilot and stuff like that. Everything's relatively easy to reach, but the further buttons to the middle for my hands, which I have like probably fairly small hands, they're a little bit difficult to reach, but it's nice that they're tactile buttons versus like a capacitive touch, because capacitive touch is just the worst ever. And yeah, everything climate control wise is very easy to control. The screen is touchscreen, but obviously it has that Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, where it's a little bit difficult to zoom. The climate control vents, it is nice that you can just reach into them and move them with your fingers, because a lot of people are moving towards like having it moved on the screen, and that to me is maddening. Like the one on the Tesla is like fine to move, but I really have no idea. Like I have to like move it and then think about where it's pointing to. So that to me is like annoying. And then also like for at least the Tesla, like you can't move one and not the other one. You have to move like it synchronously. So if I want all of the air pointing at my face, both of the vents are pointing at my face, not just like one of them. So I think Nissan still does a good job in keeping that on this car. Yeah, other than that, I think it's a solid car. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.